Okay, today I just thought I'd shoot a video on how I sharpen my bench chisels. I've come up with a way that works for me. It's pretty quick, it's pretty easy. It doesn't take a lot of expensive sharpening gadgets. First thing I use is just a cheap chisel gauge, a sharpening gauge. I think you can usually find these for around $10 on the internet. Then you need just an angle gauge. Then the next things I use, I use the Scary Sharp method to start off. This is just some 240 grit wet or dry sandpaper that I've got glued down to a piece of MDF, and then I've got a piece of 400 grit also glued to the same piece of MDF. A lot of people like to use glass or granite plates. MDF is flat enough for me, and I haven't had a problem with it warping whenever I spray water on the paper to give it some lubrication. First thing you're going to want to do is establish your chisel angle. I like a 28-degree angle. I've got my gauge here set to 28 degrees. So all you're going to do is set your chisel in your gauge, in your sharpening jig, and line it up with your gauge. I've already got it lined up to 28 degrees, but all you do to change the angle is loosen up your gauge and slide your chisel forward or backward to change the angle. Once you've done that, I suggest making yourself a jig so you don't have to measure every time. All I've done is taken a piece of plywood and screwed down a block to it. I took my chisel just like so. That distance is the same. I line up my chisel against this block every time, and I never ever have to measure it with the gauge again. It's very easy. My last step is going to be an Arkansas water stone that I picked up luckily in a estate auction, and also luckily the previous owner actually wrote on it what it was. It says "Ark use water." That was lucky for me because it could have been an oil stone. I wouldn't have known. You don't want to spray water on an oil stone or vice versa. So the first thing I do is just lube up my paper a little bit. If you're establishing an angle, this will take a while, but since I've already got my angle established, it shouldn't take me very long. What you're going to want to do is go until you feel just a little bit of a burr on the back side of your chisel, and shouldn't take you too long to do that. Okay, once you feel your burr, you want to go ahead and do the back side of your chisel, and I just lay it on the edge of my sharpening block and just polish it up a little bit. Doesn't take long to push that burr back to the other side of the edge, and that's all you're really doing when you're sharpening, is pushing that burr back and forth. And as you move up through the grits, that burr gets finer and finer until you finally polish it down and it's really sharp. So I've got it done. The next thing I'm going to do is just repeat the process on my 400 grit paper. For my next step, I'm going to be using the Arkansas water stone, and on this step I'm going to establish a micro bevel on my edge. All I'm going to do is, instead of continuing to polish this whole edge, I'm going to take and change the angle a little bit and kind of knock off the end just like that. And what that's going to do, it's not going to be nearly that big, obviously, just on the very tip of the edge, but what that does is gives you a little bit sharper angle on the edge, which gives you a little bit tougher edge, and it makes the next sharpening easier. You don't have to go all the way back through all the grits. You just have to put it back in your gauge and use your jig and polish this very little bit. Now eventually that's going to keep growing, and you're going to have to go ahead and reestablish your angle again. But you can get an awful lot of sharpenings off your micro bevel before you're going to have to do that. Now the way I set up my jig for my micro bevel is, all I have is, this is a piece of aluminum. It's about 1/16 of an inch thick, and I just use it as a spacer with my jig that I already have. I'm just going to hold it up here and line it up so that it gives me a little bit of space, and that's just going to change my angle just enough to give me our micro bevel. So now I just sharpen it on my water stone, and once again I just want to go until I start to feel a little bit of a burr on the back side of my blade. And it shouldn't take me very long once again to do this. There we go. I just polish the back, and that's it. I'm ready to hone the final edge. Okay, coming off a water stone, the chisel will already shave. It's already shaving sharp, but to get that final perfect edge, what I like to do is use a leather strop. Now this is a leather power strop that I have set up on my variable speed grinder, but you can just as easily do this with an old belt and a little bit of white jeweler's rouge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my chunk of white jeweler's rouge and load up my power strop right here. Just get a little bit on there, then I'm ready to go. And all I got to do is just polish that edge just a little bit, and I polish the back side, and I'm done. Now I'm a little bit of a nut about sharpening, but I always have to test it on my arm and make sure it shaves. And I don't want it just to shave, I want hairs to pop off as soon as it touches it. So I don't know if you can see that, but this chisel is very sharp now and it's ready to go. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this video on sharpening. I'm going to be shooting some more videos today that I hope you'll also enjoy. Thank you for subscribing to my channel and watching my videos. I appreciate it. Goodbye.